The Know Your Foe series continues. Week 2, Middle Tennessee State, and we've got a Blue Raider podcaster joining us. Here we go.
Welcome to the Bucky Report, your destination for all things Wisconsin Badgers. Authentic takes.
Oh my God.
Game analysis.
Touchdown Badgers! Ring one up!
And discussion from the fan perspective.
Woo-hoo!
Thanks for joining us and on Wisconsin.
Welcome to the Bucky Report. We are your hosts, Rajiv and Justin, back together for a midweek Know Your Foe episode. Looking forward to the 2025 Wisconsin football season. We kicked this off last week with Miami of Ohio, this week Middle Tennessee State, and we're going to do something different right off the bat. We realized week 1, we can only get so much knowledge about the other team. We really need to lean on people like us, like you, the fans, the people who know this program inside and out because we live and breathe it. We are going to do that every week now for the Know Your Foe series. We've got a whole network of various podcast hosts, fans, journalists that we're going to be reaching out to make sure we can give you guys the best information about all the teams that we're going to play. So today we've got Jake Bolden from Blue Raider Pod. He is one of the best sort of kind of leading Middle Tennessee State podcasts out there. By the way, I love that. Middle Tennessee State, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, small school, Conference USA. They've got a podcaster who loves that team more than anything, and that's great. I could never be a fan of Middle Tennessee State, but I'm glad that somebody is. So this is going to be week 2, Justin. Again, Miami of Ohio, Middle Tennessee. These are games we absolutely need to dominate in. So hopefully we can get that done. What we're going to do is we're going to play that interview right now with Jake Bolden, and we're going to come back here and we're going to react to it. So this is Jake Bolden from the Blue Raider Pod. All right, we got Jake Bolden, host of the Blue Raider Pod, joining us today to talk about Middle Tennessee State. We always want to bring on experts of our opponents. Jake, welcome to the Bucky Report. How are you?
I'm great. I don't know that I consider myself an expert. I'm more or less a longtime super fan. I have been covering the Raiders for a long time, but things are getting exciting this year. I'm excited to not only hopefully have a winning season under the Derek Mason era, but make the trip up to Wisconsin for a very coveted P4 matchup for the Blue Raiders.
Well, hopefully it's not a fun matchup for you, but we'll see. You know what I've always found, though, Jake, fans that live and die and live and breathe with the program, that's who you really want to talk to because you guys know so much more about it. But let's start kind of big picture. Obviously, Badger fans don't know a ton about the Blue Raiders. Can you give us kind of like a big picture state of the program right now? You didn't have the best season last year, 3-9, 2-6 in conference. Where are you as a whole as a program?
The best way to look at it, in the words of our head coach, Derek Mason, is he's calling this year 1, although technically this is year 2 under the Derek Mason era after firing long-tenured head coach Rick Stockstill 2 seasons ago. The program was in a rather stagnant state. A lot of fans were upset that we were continuously at 6 wins, 7 wins. He'd make a bowl game. He was a 500 coach throughout his entire career and really didn't start to win many bowl games until the latter part and just didn't compete for conference championships. So Derek Mason took over the reins in December of last year, really pieced together a team of what's left in the portal, much like what you guys understand even at the P4 level is you can't afford to hire a coach in December because a lot of the pickings of the portal are gone. So that's why Coach Mason likes to refer to his first season here as year 0. Really slim pickings, not much of a roster turnover from the Stockstill era over to Mason, and it really showed with a 3-9 record last year. But this year, very confident with the pickups that Mason and company made in the portal. His high school signing class has a few guys that can contribute early on, so there's a lot of reason to be excited for the Blue Raiders this year.
Let's talk about some of those key adds to the team. So who are some of the players that are new to your team or potentially even key returnees that are going to be critical to your success this year?
there's going to be a lot of guys that they're missing. And so a lot of these names that I'll bring up as far as additions go, they're hit or miss. They come from P4 stops that you're hoping to kind of get a turn on their career, much like the Blue Raiders had with Omari Kelly, someone that Wisconsin should get familiar with as he transferred into Michigan State, a guy who is going to be on NFL scout radars as his college career comes to an end. So who is the next Omari Kelly at wide receiver position for the Blue Raiders? the name that I keep hearing around camp is AJ Jones. He's a transfer from Arizona, a guy that didn't get much playing time there, but he has the big body makeup of a P4 wide receiver, and that seems to do pretty well for a lot of guys that come here. I think of guys like Trey Harris, who is at Ole Miss. He's a Louisiana Tech transfer. That those big body receivers do very well in Conference USA. That's one addition that I like a lot. As far as the defensive side of the ball goes, the biggest area that the Raiders added to was the defensive secondary, which is an area that they were injury riddled with. Xavier Williams, who was going into preseason last year, was a quarterback, was then transferred into a free safety at the end of the year, and he did so well at free safety that he is transferred out to Cincinnati this year. So much turnover in the defensive secondary side of things, but they got a lot of length back there. But the one name at linebacker, he's a guy from UT Chattanooga, part of the FCS playoff team for the Mocs back in 2023. Tackles for loss last year. So he's a guy that I'm excited about in the defensive backfield for MTSU.
You mentioned your receiver, Amari Kelly, who's gone now. Do you still feel like you've got a deep threat option with either the new guy you talked about? Because obviously your quarterback, Nick Badiato, he does have the potential to kind of throw the ball long, and he has 7.4 yards per attempt last year. Do you still feel like you have that deep threat?
I wouldn't say AJ Jones is going to be the deep threat. Now, obviously, he has that ability. The one name that I really like coming in was another transfer from Fresno City Community College out in California, Najee Cox. He's going to be more of the X receiver, a guy that has a lot of speed on the outside edge that can take the top off of a defense. I believe the numbers were in junior college that he was nearly 20 yards per reception. That was his game. He would beat his defender, get downfield, over the free safety. And obviously, if you have a quarterback that can put it there, he's got the hands to catch it. So he's a name that I think is going to fulfill that deep ball threat that Omari Kelly had. And then AJ Jones is going to be a good 1-2 punch with him at the Y. And then there's a few other names like Miles Butler, who's a returnee, who is the leading returning receiver from last year that can be a bit of a threat. I think for once, though, the room as a whole at wide receiver is much deeper this year.
Other than Kelly, are there any other key losses that you kind of suffered this year? Whether you mentioned a couple names, but portal, graduation, who are some of the big contributors that are no longer with your program?
As far as the offense goes, the biggest one is going to be our running back, Flip Krettel, or Jaden Krettel, if you look at the roster. He was someone who was supposed to return this year, but was deemed academically ineligible. So we are missing our leading running back. However, we returned Jaquil Middlebrook, who's going to fill those shoes, I think, just as well, if not better, as a redshirt sophomore. And that's going to be the biggest loss, I would say. On the defensive side, Devin Curtis, who was an All-CUSA outside linebacker, someone who, again, we all thought would be returning this year, but he hit the portal to our surprise. Collectively, a lot of the core guys, much like as we'll get into the quarterback play, as I already touched on, the running back, Jaquil Middlebrooks, our CB1 is back. So there are still a few guys that they feel comfortable with. And those that are missing, I don't consider them key losses, maybe outside of Omari Kelly and Holden Willis, who is our tight end. I think Mason's very confident that who he's backfilling with will be just fine.
You know, when you guys go, these smaller schools like Middle Tennessee, Conference USA teams that travel to the Big Ten, obviously it's very difficult for you guys, but certainly there are opportunities sometimes to we've seen, games like this go wrong for teams like us. What makes Middle Tennessee State hard to beat? What's kind of the calling card to this roster and Derek Mason as a whole that's going to make you tough to beat?
Derek Mason loves to use, pun intended, that they're blue-collar athletes here at MTSU. These are guys that understand their role here, that maybe that next step is to move on to P4. Obviously, loyalty is something that you'd like to have, but he knows the players that he has. He's confident in the players that he has. And I think that really going into a game like this against Wisconsin, first of all, you have to have the belief. And if there's anyone that makes you want to run through a brick wall more, it's going to be Derek Mason. He has that type of intensity about him that can get his team fired up. These games are tough for a multitude of reasons. Your eyes can get really big. The Blue Raiders, their one road P4 matchup last year was in Oxford against Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin there in Ole Miss. So they have felt the energy that is a P4 at the highest level. I think they feel confident, and obviously no slight at Luke Fickell and the Badgers, but I would have to imagine this is a matchup you feel is more winnable than it would be in Oxford. All things considered, though, this is still going to be a tough matchup. MTSU has to play, in my opinion, a near flawless game. Collectively, though, it'll be so early in the season, it's hard to really tell. When you talk about all the turnover that Mason has had with the roster, there's a lot that I still think could go wrong that we haven't seen ironed out. Luckily, we play an FCS opponent the week prior, and we can really see, hopefully this new look offense that can score more than 17 points a game like it did last year. So all things considered, they could be dangerous if the offense is what it's supposed to be. Again, they have a wholly new offensive line. They're returning one starter on the offensive line, which normally sounds bad, but I would say it's good news for the Blue Raiders that they didn't return that offensive line. And then same with the defense. A lot of those holes they have filled with better talent. So I think collectively you feel more comfortable playing a P4 opponent this year. However, you still got to see those signs of the tide turning in that week 1 game before you go to Wisconsin.
And in your opinion, Jake, where do you feel like the Badgers, what are your weaknesses? Where do you feel like the Badgers are probably going to attack you? What are some things that you don't really quite do well?
I would say, again, with the style of defense that we like to play, in last year, Brian Stewart, longtime defensive coordinator at all levels, NFL, XFL, and of course, Division I football, they ran a lot of 4-3 because that's what the personnel allowed. Now, Coach Stewart and Coach Mason are a lot more comfortable going all the way back to Mason's days at Stanford. They're a lot more comfortable in the 3-4, where you have 3 down linemen and you'll have an outside linebacker that's normally playing 9 technique way on the outside. So that style will actually suit, I think, pretty well. I know that Luke Fickell has typically done the air raid system in his past, but I know that he's trying to get more to reliant on the run game, which tends to do pretty well for Wisconsin in the Big Ten. So all things considered, I think the 3-4 will do a lot better against that, even with his play action style that Luke Fickell likes to intertwine in there. However, again, the depth in our front line and those 3 down linemen, we're returning all 3 of those guys, but that's it. Past that, they're not only are they young, they're very thin. So if Luke Fickell is able to do what he wants to do, which is pound the ball and dominate the run game, that's something that could really get the Blue Raiders in trouble. And if they're selling out on the run to go back on the play action pass, obviously, I think they'll be able to pick apart a still inexperienced group collectively. That is the Blue Raiders secondary.
I mean, listen, that's really the plan. We have brought in new offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes, and we are looking to kind of go back to the good old Wisconsin football that's dominant running attack, because the 2 years of the air raid system just did not work, and we're kind of glad that time is over. Last question for you, Jake, before I let you go. Players that any opponents that you play really should be worried about. Who are the names that Badger fans need to be watching out for on your squad?
The player that we're most excited about is going to be the quarterback, Nick Vattiato, an All-CUSA quarterback of the last 2 years, actually his freshman year, which feels like forever ago. He was a Hawaii Bowl MVP as a third-string quarterback. So he has the tenacity. Obviously, if he worked his way up from a third-string bowl MVP to now a 3,000-yard passer in back-to-back seasons, he's the guy to watch. All things considered, I know I made a slight at how bad the offensive line was last year. He still was able to throw for 3,000 yards. That should be commended. His interception numbers didn't go up. His interception numbers stayed the exact same. So he's a very cerebral quarterback, someone that I think Badger fans alike would consider impressive. He had a few offers to go to the SEC actually after Rick Stockstill's final year, but decided he liked Mason, liked what Mason was coaching, and the kid has the ability to play at the next level. I wouldn't give him the benefit of the NFL, but with what we've seen with the XFL, the UFL, CFL, he has that kind of ability. So he's someone that I think Badger fans would be very impressed with. Jaquil Middlebrooks, as I teased earlier at running back, he's a sophomore. He's a kid that really does everything well. If we're from Tennessee here, so we're all Titans fans, but we have Tajay Spears, very similar to that style. He's a guy that can run downhill between the tackles, but he has great hands on the outside. Again, if we want to spread the ball out like Bodie Reeder likes to on offense, get the ball more left to right as opposed to vertical, those 2 guys in the backfield could spell some danger for opposing defenses.
I was with you until you said you were a Titans fan. I'm a Colts fan, so that doesn't bode very well.
I was born into it, if that makes you feel any better. So I'm ashamed to admit it for the most part.
Jake, thanks so much. I appreciate all the attention on your program and what you've given us today. Where can people find your work?
So we're on Twitter and X at Blue Raider Pod, as well as Instagram, TikTok, and of course YouTube. As we get closer to the season, I love the stuff you're doing in the summer. As we get closer to the season, we'll have you on as a guest talking more Badgers football along with everything this year. So you can find us at Blue Raider Pod. And two, if you like Group of Five football, you like Conference USA football by chance, I also do host the Conference USA podcast roundtable full of members that are a part of our college huddle group. So if you want all your fixins there with Conference USA, that is the stop. But again, I appreciate you having me on and let me talk a little bit about my Blue Raiders.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Jake. Appreciate it. Okay, that was great. Thank you again for Jake Bolden for joining us, giving us some really good information there, Justin, about this team. You know, their return. They've got their quarterback coming back. Derek Mason clearly trying to build a new culture. What are some of your thoughts and takeaways from what you listened to from Jake?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing there is that it seems like they're almost in a similar place to where Wisconsin is. Like they're trying to reestablish things with the new staff and to take that step forward to feel like you're headed in the right direction. You know, looking at this, I think if you're Wisconsin, you feel pretty good about the talent advantage, obviously. And I think that that's where it comes down to right off the bat. You know, we need to go out there and dictate that we're the bigger, more physical team and take advantage of that. And really, if from our standpoint, the physicality of the run game, that needs to be where we punish them. I know he said that was one of the areas that he wasn't quite sure what to expect this year. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the one area that we feel pretty strongly about, provided we stay healthy, that the run game is going to be a major part of this offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things you heard him talk about was the quarterback, Nicholas Vadiato. He threw for 3,000 yards last year, 7.4 yards per attempt. He had Amari Kelly, who is now on his way to Michigan State. That was their top wide receiver that they lost. But there's still a lot of turnover. But Vadiato's back. And listen, we're not the most adept defense out there. So can we get pressure on Vadiato? Because the line, listen, Middle Tennessee State's line should be no match for the likes of, you know, Cheeks and Peterson and Scruggs and these guys, Suggs, Perkins. Like, we need to get consistent pressure and really disrupt that, because the last thing you need when you play a team like this is to give that guy confidence. Mm-hmm. Derek Mason, as you said it, he's trying to rebuild a culture. This is a team that normally won 5, 6, 7 games, 8 games. Now last year they were 3-9, 2-6 in conference. Bad year for them, total rebuilding, but Derek Mason's trying to change the culture. Just as you said, what Luke Fickell's doing. You can't give them an instant of confidence. If you give them confidence, they're going to run all over you. Same thing like we talked about Miami of Ohio last week. They want to be like, they want to keep in the game as long as they can. They want to slow down things as much as they can to where they can give themselves a shot in the second half. We've got to find a way to disrupt Nicholas Vadiato. He is by far their best player. If we get him, if he's able to fire down the field against potentially inexperienced our secondary cornerbacks like opposite Hallman, can give a little issue there. But in the end, Justin, I think 2 weeks into the season, we need to be 2-0, and we need to be 2-0 convincingly at this point, because now you've got Alabama coming next week, and that's not what we need. We need to dominate as much as possible.
Oh yeah, I think that this is a game that if you win by less than 3 scores, you need to feel a little uncomfortable. Probably is a game that you could potentially get to 4 scores or more, but you need to go out there and you need to just dominate this game. You've talked in all this offseason about how you're going to get bigger and more physical and how you're going to be closer to what the old style was with some new, additions in terms of the passing game and what we want to do. You need to go out there and show it, and you need to show it convincingly against a team like this.
Yeah. Justin, your confidence level going into this game, is this pretty much 100% for you? I mean, for me, I'm saying 99. This is Middle Tennessee State. Like, come on now.
This is a game where if we wanted to lean on the run game and just win, I feel very confident that they'd be able to just run the football and do it. I think the biggest takeaway that I have coming into the season is I think people will be surprised at how much better the run game looks than it has the last couple seasons. And I think that that's what I look at from this game, where they're just going to be able to Purdue this team almost.
Yeah.
And we're not going to put up 400 yards, but I mean, they should be over 200 in this game.
I love that you just made a new verb called Purdueing someone. I love that. We've just dominated them for 18 straight years. They're not on our schedule this year, but I love that. and all my Purdue fan friends listening to this, which they won't. That's epic. I love that. We're going to just Purdue them, meaning we're going to run the ball all over their asses because they can't stop us. Love that, Justin. That's great. Yeah, totally agree. It's also a get yourself set game, right? You've got Alabama and then Maryland after this. You need to get yourself going. You need to get confidence. You need to get guys on the field here as well. Second half, get Mason Postas on the field, get Nick Clayton's on the field, like get Eugene Hilton on the field. Like you need to get the young guys some experience because you're going to need them as the season progresses. These two games, Miami, Middle Tennessee State, get going, get yourself in the right headspace because it all goes downhill from here. I mean, the schedule's brutal.
I won't say that, like, one thing we've known is Luke Fickell does not seem to coach the same way as Paul Chryst did. I want to see balance in this game. I want to see us throwing the football at least enough to keep things like balanced enough that the other team's at least guessing somewhat. I don't want to watch us run the ball 8 straight times and then finally throw a pass. Let's go out there. Let's be fairly consistent in how much the percentages divvy up there. But make sure you're working on your passing game. Don't go into Alabama having thrown the ball 30 times combined in the first 2 games. I don't want to
really
see
good
that.
Point. Yep.
I want to see you throw 20 to 25 times. And it doesn't need to be super explosive, but it needs to be effective and it needs to look like it's consistent. And that's what I want to see out of this team. And I think we'll be surprised. Like the speed they have on the outside, Wisconsin's going to break their share of big plays in these first couple of games.
I think that's a really good point. You've got to have balance to be ready for Alabama. Thank you again to Jake Bolden from Blue Raider Pod. Go check out his work if you're a Middle Tennessee State fan, or if you want a Badger fan who wants to check it out, Blue Raider Pod on all the socials and wherever you can get your podcasts. We'll be back again next week for the Alabama Know Your Foe. As always, thanks for joining us and On Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Bucky Report or The Bucky Report Podcast from wherever you get your content. Until next time, On Wisconsin.